Hello everyone, I'm Paulo Peres from Conservatorio de Música de Porto, and I will speak about the classic guitar in Portugal from 1850 to the end of the 20th century. So I begin with the guitar activity in Portugal in the second half of the 19th century. Very little is known about the history of guitar in Portugal during this period, although more and more is known due to the availability of the recent information. However, a fully encompassing record is still missing regarding repertoire, performers and composers, which justifies our attempt to roughly draft a brief, even though incomplete, history of the instrument from 1850 to our days. In 1855 appeared published in Porto the second edition of the Método Geral para Viola Francesa by Manuel Nuno Agüero, originally published in 1840. So Viola Francesa is the name from classic guitar in Portugal at that time. This is the back front of the method. You can see here. It was sold in the house of Thatcher in Porto, and now this is the front cover. You can read. With principles of music scales, arpeggios and preludes for all tones, which will reach you to accompany singings, followed by various cavatinas, arias, mazurkas, vassovianas, waltz and contradances. Plus a particular study to make as much as possible the sound of harmonics, extracted for several of the most accredited methods. Agüero don't say anything about the methods he refers. The methods contain also original pieces and adaptations for solo guitar of areas from Italian operas, showing an increasing degree of difficulty. This is the preface. We can read in the preface, the viola was only invented to accompany the singing voice, but the tireless effort of a number of renowned artists will make it possible for it to be played in salons, concerts, and even in theaters, and produce effects as any other instrument. The viola has the great advantage of being easy to carry and capable of accompanying the voice, flute, fiddle, and all other instruments, always in good harmony. So, the preface suggests that the guitar known at that time in Portugal as viola francesa had then the essential role of accompaniment. Nevertheless, the author not only wished this instrument to accompany the human voice, but to enable the student to play in a short time any piece of music. It's a very good goal, I think. This is there are the 20 short preludes in all majors and minor tones, the most used. They are summary of the accompaniment technique with passage through all the most tones of the guitar. You can see it begins in C major, G major, then D major, E major. It ends in G minor. So now, the method to this part covers music theory, guitar posture and tuning, and various scales and tones. As a way of attaining a richer harmony, Agüero favored the use of the left thumb while pointing out other methods which absolutely forbid its use. So now I'm going to play 3 pieces. The first one is the Andantino, it's just 1 line, and a valse. And then the last one is an arrangement for cavatina from the opera Norma by the Italian composer Bellini. I just play the first movement in a short version. It sounds like, okay. So, Ricardo, if you can, okay.
I changed.
Thanks. I'm trying to play. I'm so cold, my hand. Maybe it's better to turn on the lights, huh? Because I can't see anything. Yeah? Okay, for me it's okay.
I've been walking like a kilometer just. Thank you, Dani.
So, Andantino. Now the valse. This is in E major. And now the last one, it's the last of the method, it's cavatina. So let's continue. Okay. So, in 1860, a revised edition of his method was published under the title Método para viola francesa, which includes a series of new arrangements by João Ribas, of excerpts again of Italian opera. In the catalogue of the Portuguese National Library, 4 other guitar methods are listed, being published in Portugal between 1850 and 1900. Their authors are Alves Gante, Reinaldo Varela, César das Neves, and Agustín Ribeiro Fernandes, this last being a Spanish guitar player. From César das Neves, method, only the first part of its first edition, published in 1890, is available, being in its entirety dedicated to accompaniments. Both César das Neves and Reinaldo Varela had a strong ties with fado and to the Portuguese guitar, and their activity went further into the 20th century. Sorry, I must drink some water now. So this is the method of Agustín Ribeiro Fernandes. Although Fernandes, this method is dated in 1900 in the catalogue of the National Library of Portugal, it must not have been published before the 30s, considering the fact that in this preface Fernandes made a reference of his 50 years of artistical practice, and also the fact that the first known record of as a young guitar student has been made in 1886. So from 1898 onwards, he must have settled down in Lisbon as a concert performer and a music teacher, and the name of Agustín is a Portuguese name. So Agustín became Agostinho. Now, in its preface, you can read here, he says, "My practice of 50 years of artist life, and therefore of a constant and careful observation, have given me valuable elements to deduce rules that facilitated the performance of a piece, constituting a correct technique within the reach of all intelligence." So, this two-part method is very complete, including many exercises in 87 pages. Rebel only presents one piece of his own, entitled Campanadas, and a Estudo Final. A funny thing is, as you can see here, the fingers of the right hand are represented by numbers, and those of the left hand by letters. So it's very difficult to read his music. It's a mess for us because it's not used to do like that. Now, about the 19th century, okay, some of these methods has several editions, and this appears to show some sort of interest in guitar playing, either as accompaniment instrument or as a solo, by the Portuguese society, although we know very little about the repertoire, composers and performers in the 19th century. I think it's because the study of the musical studies in Portugal it's so recent. I think it's because of that. We don't know many things about the composers, the repertoire, and so on. Nevertheless, guitar and Portuguese guitar were mostly used to accompany modinha, an urban song of Portuguese Brazilian origin, with a strong presence in Portugal music life. So, now I'm going to talk about the guitar from 1900 to the end of World War II. And I begin to talk about fado. Fado is a type of urban popular song born in Lisbon during the second, third of 19th century. This type of music is been originally modinhas and Afro-Brazilian song dance related to London, spread mostly in the women world of taverns, brothels, and bullfighting. It gradually lost its rhythmic and syncopated character, so that the singing became predominant over the dance. The singing voice gets tinged with a sentimental and fatalist shade, with a less rigid metric pulse and a frequent resorting to rubato and suspense. And then the military dictatorship after the coup d'etat of 20 May in 1926, for us is 48 years of dictatorship, so it's very bad, and which will bring about Estado Novo and Salazar, effective fado practitioners and the music style itself. On the one hand, all fado artists, singers and musicians were forced to become professionals and carry a professional card with them, and on the other hand, under the influence of the music theatres, fado evolves into fado canção, fado song, with a previous written and a text alternating between strophes and refrain. Fado became by then a constant presence in all cultural events, from casas de fado and other public places such as musical, cinema and radio. The political establishment tried to take advantage, of course, of this widespread presence and promote a populist and national culture. At this time, between 26 and the end of the World War II, the model for fado accompaniment by Portuguese guitar and viola is the name for the accompaniment of its classic guitar, is defined, and this will last for over half a century. And Armandinho, it's a Portuguese guitar player, and Martinho d'Assunção, it's a viola, were decided for this shift. Now I'm going to talk about Martinho d'Assunção. He started his guitar study with Agustín Rebel Fernandes. I have told, yes, a Spanish guy who settled down in Lisbon in the end of the 19th century. Later he began to study fado with João da Mata Gonçalves, a guitarist who accompanied the famous Portuguese guitar Armandinho. Assunção became a virtuoso of the guitar, and he was always connected to fado, both as a player and as a composer. The few audio or audiovisual available tell us that we were in the presence of an interpreter of great mastery, but he also dedicated himself to guitar teaching. So the role he may have played in the evolution of a guitar praxis in that first half of the century is still in need of deeper research. And now I try. Okay. Listen to some music of Martinho d'Assunção, played by him.
Do you need?
No, I think I can. Okay, no, it's not that. Okay. He plays with the metal strings. Oh, sorry. Sorry, it's not my computer, so. Okay. Now, so it seems that then the guitar was in those days mostly associated with fado accompaniment together with the Portuguese guitar, whereas not much is known about a possible scholar practice. The only reference we have found related to its repertoire is a piece by the composer and conductor Francisco de la Serra. It's a suite Goivo in 3 movements. Dedicated to André Segovia, it was written in 24 after they both had met in Paris. The 3rd movement has been lost, and Segovia would only play Sonata a una Muerta, the 1st movement, in premiere of the piece. You can see there a program. I think it's in Germany. I don't remember where. So there is the Sonata. Yes. Okay, now I'm going to talk about Duarte Costa and his role in the emancipation of the classic guitar in Portugal. Duarte Costa is a guitar player, a classic guitar player, composer and pedagogue. Spent the most part of his career in Lisbon, where he was born. His first musical approach was playing banjo in an amateur jazz group. Later, at the age of 16, he began his guitar studies with Martinho da Assunção, whose guitar fado ensemble, 2 violas, or classic guitar, and 2 Portuguese guitars. He joined between 37 and 38 to accompany the fado singer Constança Maria. So the beginning of his guitar practice began by being connected to fado, but in 40s Costa met José Mendonça Braga, a medical doctor who owned a significant amount of classic guitar music and whose guidance and patronage were priceless in the successful pursuit of his studies. And in 46, he gave his first recital in Musicians Union of Lisbon. And in 48, he was awarded with the first prize in the competition for instruments organized by the National Review. And the following year, he was given a scholarship from the Instituto de Alta Cultura to study in Spain, where he would meet the classic guitar players Daniel Forteia and Narciso Yepes. Meanwhile, in 48 and 52, he attended the Curso Especial de Viola by Emílio Pujol. I'm going after later talking about that. In 53, he found the Escola de Guitarra Clássica de Lisboa. It's the first one, and later branched in Porto, Coimbra, and Faro, spreading the interest for the instrument in Portugal. Although these educational centers, in principle of amateur nature, were not officially recognized, they played an irreplaceable role in the formation of both guitarists at that time. He also opened in Coimbra a factory for the guitar manufacturing. And his excellent technique and musicality made him well known in Portugal and abroad, and he gave several recitals in Spain, Italy, England, Canada, and Mozambique. In 64, the Academia de Amadores de Música, a music school with a long tradition in Portugal, is from Lisbon, invited him to lay the foundations of a general course for guitar, but he would leave the school a short time later, or after. I think it's because he has no time to do it. It's, so, or it's not for important to him to do it. I don't know, but I guess. So, from his work of pedagogue, his método de guitarra composto em 5 partes stand out. In 5 volumes, he has a preface of Narciso Yepes. The definitive version of this method is from 67, and only the first part is edited. As a composer, besides Concerto Ibérico, premiered in 79, by the Porto Orchestra Symphony, he is the author of 40 pieces for solo guitar and music composed for Portuguese movies also. So, as to underline the relevance of Costa as a central figure of the guitar in Portugal, the Brazilian guitar player Maria Lilia São Marcos said, Costa was the first Portuguese violinista, guitar player, classic guitar player, who moved away from the guitar as a accompaniment towards a more classical area. But Costa was the visionary who really gave birth to a school of classic guitar in Portugal. In this photo, we can see Duarte Costa. This is Duarte Costa in the center, surrounded by a group of students. In the left one is João Gomes, on the right Maria Antona Havelland, is a Portuguese guitar player. The second from the left is José Lopes e Silva. I will talk about that, about him after. So, now we can listen to a piece of Duarte Costa. It's a Precisão. It's played by Pedro Rodrigues. Okay, that's it. the flat costo is very tonal, as you can see. Now, this is, I think, is the most famous piece of the flat costo. Now, I'm going to talk about the Emílio Pujol and his presence in the Conservatório Nacional de Lisboa between 46 and 69. It's a lot of time. The método de escola relacionada à guitarra, basada nos princípios da técnica de guitarra, by the guitarist, violist, composer, pedagogue and musicalist, Emílio Pujol is a major, as you know, in the guitar world in the 20th century. I have studied the whole second volume of Pujol when I was a young man. All exercises, and some of them it's not it's not so much interesting about musical interest, but difficult with legato, bars, and so on. Now it's impossible to do it with our students. I suppose.
Why?
Okay. So, Pujol played a major role in the rediscovery of the viola literature in Spanish. Also, behind an extensive work for guitar, he published numberless transcriptions for the instrument. So, in 1946, Pujol was invited by Ivo Cruz, by then the director of Conservatório Nacional de Lisboa, to open the Curso Especial de Viola. Viola is, you know, now it's the name, it's one name of, in Portugal, of classical guitar. The next year, on 9 January, he gave a lecture recital at the library of the Conservatoire, focusing exclusively on the viola repertoire during the Siglo d'Oro, in which Maria Adelaide Robert, a Portuguese singer, took part. She would later become his second wife. So there is a detailed report of the concert in the first edition of the Bulletins do Conservatório Nacional. It's from 46. And we can read the lecture, show his scholarship as dealt with the theme La Viola y sus Tenedores, and gave a masterly interpretation of the best compositions by our violists. A few print books and a single instrument stored in Jacquemart André Museum in Paris, a viola with the name Guadalupe, of which Mr. Pujol has an exact copy and which he used in this concert. You can see, no, sorry. Okay. You can see here the viola, Guadalupe. It's a very beautiful and interesting instrument. So, I keep going. Oh, okay. In the following year, in 48, Pujol gave a recital with his wife, the guitarist Matilde Cuevas, in the main hall of the Conservatório, and organized by the Instituto Espanhol in Lisbon. So, in guitar review, Pujol, from 48, talk about the students he met in his first Conservatoire guitar course and how they played. he makes a special reference to Duarte Costa, highlighting his excellent artistic qualities. I want to show you, I must. Okay. And now, here you can see the students enrolling in the inaugural course at Conservatório were, so, yeah, the names, the first one is Duarte Costa, and the Regina Junqueira is a Spanish guitar player, the others I think is all Portuguese, and it's, I stand out that there are 12 students. So for the first year, the first edition, I think it's incredible how many students church Portugal in Conservatório. And now he told about the students. He said each one had taught himself as best he could, or studied with teachers unable to give him proper guidance. They were all using metal strings on their guitars, plucking entirely with the fingernails and making a vibrato on every note and every chord. They produce an effect like that of the Havelland guitar in the worst possible taste. So he talks about Duarte Costa. Then Duarte Costa deserves special mention. Young, highly gifted, an excellent musician with a broad culture and attitude for teaching and the temperament of a true artist. He has been warmly received in his several concerts and justly praised by the critics. To him is due in large measure the present reawakening of Portuguese interest in guitar. Okay. So, after, on 15 March 1948, auditions of the first students to attend Masterclass of Portugal finally took place. Guitarists such as Maria Antónia Havelland, Regina Junqueira, also Duarte Costa. They played works by Pujol, Targa, Schumann, Bonet, Sor, Torroba, Malatz, Luís de Narvaez, Luís Milan, and Diego Pissador. This strong presence of Portuguese students and the names of the composers on the program seems to indicate, certainly thanks to Duarte Costa endeavors, the existence of a significant number of guitar players who were quite skilled in instrument. In a letter to Alírio Dias, dated 54, 6 years later, Pujol expressed his enthusiasm about the achievements of the viola special course. My dear friend, the course here has a very lively atmosphere, and I expect a brilliant audition for our students. Manuel Moraes, a classic guitar player, who studied under Pujol, described how the course was organized. The Curso Especial de Guitarra, as a free attendance course, did not cover a whole school year like the rest instruments. It was taught in a shorter period of time, varying between 3 months or 1 month. Classes would normally take place on every workday in the morning, and contrary to the other subjects, were collective classes. That is, students who had enrolled would have to attend the master classes. The list of the students attending the course between 46 and 69 is quite long. You can see there. I stand out another time Duarte Costa, but also Alberto Pons, the Spanish guitar player who died last year, I think, and Manuel Cobedo, Javier Quevedo, and Javier Hinojosa, and also Maria Olivia São Marcos, and Pinha Norachi. He's a Spanish guy, but he lives in Portugal from many time ago. So, no, it's not that. So, now, I'm talking about the guitar from 67 to the end of the 20th century. In 67, it's an important date in classic guitar in Portugal because the first official classic guitar studies opened Academia de Amadores de Música in Lisbon only in 67, by the end of the guitarist Pinheiro Nagy. And then in 72, the Conservatório Nacional started the curso de viola dedilhada with Lopes e Silva, I told yet the name, and Manuel Moraes as teachers. Only years later, os guitar studies integrated in the other conservatories, first in Braga with José Pina in 78, and in Porto with Mário Carreira. Mário Carreira, you know, it's also our colleague in Conservatório in Porto. Only in 1807, so it's very recent, the teaching in the schools in Portugal. Only in 1990, the Cursos Superiores de Guitarra finally opened in Lisbon and Porto with Pinheiro Nagy and José Pina, respectively. José Pina played a major role in forming quite a number of guitar players in Porto and gave birth to an important school of performance. I was a student from his student, and Ricardo Sequeira also. I think I studied with him for 70 years. It's no, sorry. Yes, 17 years, yes. It's a lot of time. Later on, guitar studies entered the official curriculum of other establishments of higher education, like Aveiro, Minho, and other universities, and the Instituto Superior Polytechnic in Castelo Branco. It's near Cáceres. So, as to the lower levels, the offer has increased significantly owing to a strong support from the educational authority. This is from since 83, more or less. The official recognition of the guitar as an instrument for classic music came to promote its popularity and its study. So, the same applies to composition as well, and this period can be said to be the starting point of a golden age for guitar in Portugal. As far as you know, in up to 67, only 10 works have been written for guitar in Portugal, Lacerda, Suite Huevos, and 9 dated pieces by Duarte Costa. 68 must need be seen as a landmark due to the fact that Fernando Lopes Graça composed then his first work for guitar, Preludio e Baileto, dedicated to Pinheiro Nagy, then a teacher in the Academia de Amadores de Música, of whose board of directors Graça was a member. And this is why, because now he was to write 3 more substantial pieces, Partita, I think it's the most important, Sonatina, and Quatro Peças para Guitarra. So the fact of Graça being the most influential Portuguese composer of the 20th century explains the significance of these works in the field of guitar composition. The first wave of Portuguese pieces for guitar will continue until well into the 80s and are mostly the works of non-guitarists. You can see António Vitorino de Almeida, Cândido Lima, José António Lopes e Silva. But I stand out the Clotilde Rosa and Jorge Peixinho e Felipe Pires. Their music is avant-garde music. From this, only Lopes e Silva and José Mesquita are composer guitarists. So, let's listen to the partita, the first movement, the prelude, played by Paulo Peres. Okay. No. Managed to track. Ah, okay. 4. What's the problem? Sorry. Okay. Okay, now. So, between 83 and 2000, there was an impressive increase in Portuguese repertoire. These are works of different musical styles, from tonality to avant-garde. And Jorge Pichinho deserves a special reference for his decisive role in composing and publicizing avant-garde music in Portugal. He studied composition with Conan Vasconcelos in the Conservatório Nacional de Lisboa, Boris Porena, Goffredo Petrazzi, Viginono, Pierre Poulier and Stockhausen, and attended the Darmstadt International Composition courses. In 70, he founded the Grupo Musicale de Música Contemporânea de Lisboa, with the main objective of making the music of Portuguese contemporary composers known to a wide audience by means of concerts and recordings. And a great number of his chamber music pieces were then made public, and many of them included the guitar. The guitarist Lopes Silva was a member of this group from its beginning, and in 2025, he handed his seat over to Paulo Peres. And slow but sure, the guitar began to enter music festivals in 1971. Pinheiro Nagy included it in the Cursos Internacionais de Música do Estoril. The first guitarist to be appointed as responsible is Raul Sanchez from Uruguay, and later came for a longer period Alberto Pons. I was there twice, I think in 1984 maybe, or something like that. I think it's before. I don't know. And the lieutenant of Kissensmith. The guitarist invited today is Fábio Zanon. Further north in Vila Real, the Brazilian Dagoberto Linhares was responsible for the guitar masterclass at the Cursos Internacionais de Música da Casa Mateus between 81 and 2018. In 88, the new founded Cursos de Aperfeiçoamento de Música de Vila de Conde. It's a little town near Porto, from 30 kilometers. José Pina as responsible for the guitar masterclass, followed later by guitarist Paulo Vaz Carvalho, Alberto Pons, Margarita Scarpa, and Dejan Ivanovic. I can show you. Okay. So I'm there, as you can see, this guy, much younger, I'm there. This is Artur Caldeira, now it's teacher Escola Superior de Música do Porto. So, concluding, during the final years of the 20th century, the guitar finally achieved a status similar to other instruments. In this brief history, an analysis was made of the role of the guitar in social, cultural, artistic and pedagogical life in Portugal, from a mostly amateur practice, focused in the accompaniment of the singing voice, and Portuguese guitar in the concept of urban popular music, first with Molinas, then with Fado, and it moved progressively towards more professional performances. From the second half of the 20th century onwards, the guitar gradually appropriated serious music as it approached the state education, established composers, performers, western professionals, with various institutions promoting its artist development. So, this is a happy end of a beautiful guitar history, and I'm sure a great future beginning. Question. Okay.
I have one.
Yeah?
Just, is there any explanation about the word viola for guitar? How can you explain it regarding the language? I don't know.
No, you know, the Brazilian say violão.
And what does that mean?
It's a name in Portugal too, you know.
Violão
Viola
would be a large viola, but to not get confused with viola d'arco.
Yeah. But you know, yes, but you know, some guy say that it maybe is from vihuela, Spanish vihuela. It's explication. We don't know why.
Thank you.
But now we now in Portuguese classic guitar or guitar always.
Yes.
But it's another, because in the fado, the name viola, you say to play viola is to accompany the fado with the viola, the guitar, the Portuguese guitar. So you have the Portuguese guitar. So maybe it's the way to distinguish the guitar, the classic guitar, from the Portuguese guitar, the viola and Portuguese guitar. Maybe it's, I don't know. Maybe that's why.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Okay. So.